Greetings. It's Wednesday, April the 30th, 2025. Welcome to Denison Forum's Daily Article Podcast. I'm Chris Elkins, narrating today's daily article, authored by our Senior Editor for Theology, Dr. Ryan Denison. Mifepristone, one of two pills used in facilitating chemical abortions, gained FDA approval 25 years ago after a study of just under 31,000 participants showed that less than 0.5% experienced serious adverse reactions. That statistic has since been cited to defend not only the use of the pill, but also the removal of almost every safeguard that was put in place when it was first introduced to the public. Initially, women could not obtain the drug until going to 3 in-person visits, after which only a physician could prescribe and dispense the pills, which had to be taken in the doctor's office. An in-office follow-up visit was also required, and any adverse events that resulted from the pills had to be reported. Now, none of what I just described is still the case. All that is required today for a woman to receive the pills necessary to end a pregnancy is a teledoc appointment and a mailing address. So, perhaps it should not come as a surprise that Mifepristone is not nearly as safe and effective as originally thought. And the reality is far worse than you might imagine. A recent Ethics and Public Policy Center analysis of more than 865,000 cases since 2017 has shown that, quote, 10.93% of women experience sepsis, infection, hemorrhaging, or another serious adverse event within 45 days following a Mifepristone abortion, end quote. That means serious complications are 22 times more likely to occur than either the FDA or the pills makers have claimed. The Ethics and Public Policy Center came to these conclusions by analyzing, quote, real-world insurance claims data from 865,727 prescribed Mifepristone abortions, broadly representative of women who obtain Mifepristone abortions in the U.S. today, end quote. As such, where the initial study revolved around a closely monitored and selected group of women who took the pills under the care of a doctor, this latest study is far more representative of how this kind of abortion is actually obtained and administered today. Considering that chemical abortions account for roughly 2/3 of all abortions in the United States, an accurate assessment of the risk they pose to those who choose to take them is essential. And, if anything, the study undersells the problem. The folks behind the recent research were intentionally conservative in their approach to the study. Where the FDA uses a 72-day time frame for tracking adverse events, the original research limited the scope of their findings to 45 days. Moreover, by relying on insurance claims to form their data set, they could not capture statistics for women who purchased the pills through cash payment transactions, which, quote, are disproportionately common for abortion. As such, while the rate of serious complications is nearly 11% of cases is likely accurate for women who were not part of their study, the raw numbers are much higher. And where are we likely to go from here? Will the new research lead to real change, or will it fall on deaf ears? Fortunately, there could be some good news in this regard. In a conversation with Amna Nawaz of PBS News last week, Dr. Marty Makary, the new commissioner of the FDA, was asked about Mifepristone and if the FDA might move to impose new restrictions on the drug. In response, Makary stated, "I have no plans to take action on Mifepristone," end quote. But while that statement is not exactly encouraging, he didn't stop there. Makary went on to add that, "I believe as a scientist, you got to evolve as the data comes in. And as you may know, there is an ongoing set of data that is coming into the FDA on Mifepristone. So if the data suggests something or tells us that there's a real signal, then we can't promise we're not going to act on that data that we have not yet seen," end quote. In the wake of the Ethics and Public Policy Center report, Senator Josh Hawley, who sits on the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, penned an open letter to Dr. Makary urging him, quote, to follow this new data and take all appropriate action to restore critical safeguard on the use of Mifepristone. He gave the FDA commissioner until May the 15th to respond, and the clear expectation that the data should lead to fundamental changes in how mifepristone is administered. Moreover, when the Supreme Court heard a case on the ongoing legality of the drug last June, it ruled against a challenge that would have made it more difficult to receive it. However, it did so because the group that brought the case before them lacked standing rather than because the case itself was without merit. As I wrote at the time, Justice Kavanaugh, who wrote the majority opinion for the court, strongly intimated that any group that brought a similar case with standing in the future might expect a different and more positive outcome. It is possible that the latest data on just how much the FDA and the makers of mifepristone have misrepresented its safety could give additional grounds for such a case to be brought again. Ultimately, it's too soon to know what impact the Ethics and Public Policy Center study will have on abortion pills and their availability, but any additional limitations and safeguards around who is eligible to receive them could help save tens of thousands of lives, both among the unborn and their mothers. And that is a possibility worth celebrating, even if it falls short of the complete removal of abortion pills from the marketplace. You see, one of the most challenging aspects of being pro-life in our culture today is the knowledge that we are unlikely to ever see abortion removed as an option for those who are wishing to end their pregnancy. While we can and should work to that end, both by changing laws and, more importantly, changing hearts, we can't afford to become so fixated on that goal that we fail to appreciate the smaller wins along the way. Just as heaven rejoices when a single soul is saved, from Luke 15, verse 7, we too should rejoice every time a mother chooses life. If the recent study leads to changed laws and greater protection for both the unborn and their mothers, then that is a win and should be celebrated as such. Will you join me in praying for that outcome today? Will you pray that this study finds its way to the right people and that laws are changed to reflect reality on this issue? And lastly, will you pray that God works in the hearts and minds of every person considering abortion today and helps them choose life both for themselves and for their child? These are prayers our Heavenly Father longs to answer, and we should rejoice with Him every time He does. Let's start today. We're grateful for our podcast listeners. If you find the Daily Article podcast helps you better understand today's news and cultural issues and then respond biblically, please rate and review the Daily Article podcast on the platform from which you subscribe. That helps people find and follow the Daily Article podcast.